Hi everybody, my name is Michael Stegner, and I wanted to let you know about a program I've been working on the last 10 years that will be released in the next 10 days or so. The program's a website and a series of books for learning to play music. The website's an interactive website that teachers can use to be trained in the approach. There is like 10 hours of training videos from the first lesson all the way through about 4 or 5 years of lessons, as well as accompaniment tracks, about 5 hours worth of recorded music for students in classes to play along with, as well as a lot of written notes that you can sort and filter based on what you're getting ready to teach. There'll be more information, nuts and bolts, on the website and the program in the next few days for you to check out, and you can just subscribe to michaelstegner.com to get those updates directly in your email. But I grew up taking traditional piano lessons and trombone, actually, and singing. In piano I did the traditional track, and was a pretty serious classical player for middle school and high school, and started to do some jazz, and then went to college for jazz piano, and then toured, performed, recorded, gigged a lot, and started teaching. Sometime around high school is when I started teaching private piano lessons. And after gigging a lot, teaching a lot, I started to observe the really top-tier players that I admired and the ones that I really looked up to. And I noticed how they thought of and performed music way differently than the way it was presented in the traditional methods. And so I set out to kind of change the way I taught and make it more based on these amazing players that I was collaborating with, and it developed into this program and this method. When I started teaching, I noticed there were some kids who were amazing at playing by ear, but they couldn't read anything. Then there were some kids who were great readers that never learned to play by ear. And I felt that it was really important and possible that you could merge sight reading and ear training from the very first lesson and not separate things. And so I wanted to bring everything together and not separate so much. I also was really frustrated in a 30-minute lesson if I just went with whatever method and there was a theory book, a lesson book, a performance book, technique book, and you're trying to bang through all that stuff in a half-hour lesson. It gets really inefficient, in my opinion. So I tried to merge all of that stuff into the pieces that I wrote. And I wrote pieces that were specifically geared towards concepts. So if I wanted a technique piece, then that was in the piece. And maybe in correspondence with the technique piece, I would write something that could be played at the same time as the technique piece that dealt with performance or theory or whatever, like harmony. And so every 4 songs in the method can actually be played at the same time. So the first 4 pieces can be played at the same time. So a student is assigned these 4 pieces at the same time, and each of the pieces actually focuses on one of the concepts that normally would be put into separate books with the traditional approaches that are out there that I use forever and ever. And with that, it's a concept-based method, and it's not so repertoire-driven. In other words, I wanted to stack all the concepts that I thought were necessary for kids to play at a high level, and not start Fur-Elise because they really wanted to learn Fur-Elise and have them get bogged down in the middle because it wasn't as familiar, or they perceived it as being more difficult. I wanted to load them up on concepts for a few years so that they could apply it to any piece that they wanted to play and learn the pieces way quicker. I found that the kids, especially by the time they get into late middle school, high school, that have gone through this program, they know hundreds of songs, and they can retain songs. So a song they learned a year ago, or if they learned a Beethoven sonata a year ago, usually they can dust that off within a week and be ready to roll on it if they need to perform it. So not making it so repertoire intensive at the beginning, not having a kid learn a 32 piece of music just so they can play the pedal on the last measure. the pieces are very like concept heavy, and they're really short, so the kids can like learn a lot of different little pieces in a short amount of time. The other thing that was frustrating after playing music in different groups, chamber groups, jazz groups, etc., is that I really was bummed that the kids had to wait until they got to a certain level to interact and perform and collaborate with other kids playing music. So because these pieces are written in groups of 4, you can bring your students together throughout the experience and have them play together, even when they're 4 years old or 5 years old, all the way up to the more advanced students. So since everything's a separate part, you can bring them together, build a community of kids who talk about music, who experience music together, and don't just play in unison all the time. If you're a group piano teacher, you know there's really nothing that's in parts. This is all in parts. Or if you're a private teacher who brings your students together once a month for like a theory workshop or like some kind of lecture or master class, I've just found that just having them getting together and jamming together on something with structure, it just builds the energy way more in my studio and in others who've tried it over the years. So there's a lot to this. Like I said, there'll be more information in the next few days kind of coming out on michaelstegner.com to kind of give you more of the real nuts and bolts and nitty gritty. But this is just a little service announcement letting you know that it's coming and the gist behind it. So if this sounds of interest to you or you think it would be of interest to anybody you know, go ahead and share this and stay tuned. If you're here for like my records and stuff, then all this teaching stuff will be in the background soon enough, and I'll be releasing new music soon. So thank you all for watching, and we'll have more information coming soon.